Ladies and gentlemen, we are here live at Charm City Tennis Talk. My boy Landon, my brother, how you doing today?
Doing phenomenal as always. Got my rocking my Nadal and my Nadal. So
Classic, absolute classic. Yeah, man, lot to break down today. Of course, we've got two ATP 500 tournaments that kicked off this week. We've got three ATP 250s that finished last week that we'd love to break down, and then certainly dive into the Sinner talk here. Obviously, number one, getting accused of a negligence in his medical practices with perhaps some cream that tested positive on for performance enhancing drugs. But I would love to just dive into the Sinner talk first. Love to hear your thoughts on this 3-month ban and how you feel about it.
well, this has been on my mind for the last few days. I woke up the other night in the middle of the night and I got a text saying Sinner accepting a 3-month ban. I must have been half asleep because I went back to sleep and I was just like distraught. I woke up the next day. It felt like I just lost something. As you know, I love Sinner. He's my favorite. Djokovic all time, Federer, I like them, but Sinner has become one of my favorite players. And I think one of the reasons is because when someone goes through adversity like this and everyone's against them, I love to have those people's backs, and it seems like when you are number one in the world, of course you're going to have haters. You have a lot of lovers, but people are going to hate on you for whatever. So when this ban first came out, I was not happy about it. I was actually upset and didn't really process it the right way. Kind of more so being like, okay, well, if Sinner's out, then why should I even watch tennis? It just kind of takes everything away. Yeah. But as I've had the last few days to reflect, I honestly think that this ban is just going to work in his favor 100%. It's everyone can take what they want from this whole Sinner case. In my heart, I know, and like what I think is, I don't think that Sinner cheated knowingly, right? I don't think that he cheated. Why would he need to? He's the best in the world. We've seen it. U.S. Open, we just saw it in Australia. I mean, he's levels above. So he's the last guy that needs extra help. But if you had one organization that wanted to suspend him for 3 months, the other said no. So this was a tricky situation. He accepted the 3 months because if he would have got banned for 1 or 2 years for this, I would have thought this would have been outrageous. So like I said, I don't think that Sinner knowingly cheated, but because WADA said that he didn't cheat knowingly, but you are responsible for your team. And you know what? Somebody in his team obviously fumbled the bag. They weren't thinking. And when you have this happen twice, something's fishy. So he got rid of his team. People can think what they want about it. I know Nick Kyrgios, some other players weren't too happy about it. But if we're talking about the timing of the suspension, it couldn't have came for a better time for Sinner because, one, he won't have to miss any Grand Slams, which is huge. As we know, every single tournament matters on the ATP Tour, the 250s, the 500s, especially the Masters 1000s. So the Masters 1000s, there's 9 of them a year, and they're all very important. He will miss Indian Wells and the Miami Open, 2 very important tournaments, which he probably would have won because no one's beating him on hardcourt right now. But it's not the end of the world because guys that will never win Grand Slams have won those tournaments. So anybody can come out of those. But if we were to have Sinner miss a Grand Slam, it would definitely hurt. But like I said, this couldn't have come for a better time for Sinner because I think this fits in perfectly for him. He's going to have 3 months off. I look at it more of like a spring break, right? It's like if you're getting suspended from school, are you going to get suspended on a Monday where you missed a whole week, or are they going to suspend you on a Friday? This is like they're suspending him the day before spring break. He's not going to miss any Grand Slams. He's going to come back right just in time for the Rome Masters, which is the biggest tournament in Italy. It's in his home country. Tune-up tournament. And then he's got a week off and he goes right on to the French Open clay. And I was looking at the odds yesterday, and Sinner's odds for the French Open actually, they lowered because I think this rest that he's going to get, he's not the best on clay. Well, he's good on clay, but hard court, he's levels above. So this will give him a few months to really work on it. He can work on things. He can rest up. And like I said, he'll be ready for Rome, and we'll see what he does in the French Open. So like I said, for Sinner, this couldn't have come at a better time. And I think he's going to make the most of it.
Absolutely. Yeah, man. I mean, you pretty much covered everything nail on the head. I think when there is a positive test, there has to be some form of accountability at the end of the day. And like you said, man, the timing couldn't have been better. I mean, this is a guy, being number one with all the money and power. I feel like he had the ability to perhaps negotiate the timeline of his ban. So I think when it comes to the timeline, everything, it was very favorable. Like you said, 3 months here. There's a few ATP 1000s he'll miss. Gives other guys an opportunity. But again, I think if you just let it slide and there's no ban whatsoever after we've seen other athletes test positive for similar substances and get some form of a consequence, a 3 month, I think it's fair. I think it's fair. And, hopefully, and I don't think this will happen, but hopefully this won't create some form of a stain on his career because ultimately this guy has the potential to be an all-time great.
And back to the point where you said about a stain on the career, it's something we talked about the other day. And, if this is a guy that hasn't done much, we know some guys for one little play, guys that haven't done much in their career. If you make it to any professional sport, you're obviously good enough to be there. But a guy like Sinner, this won't be even talked about in a few years. People can bring it up all they want, but he won the Grand Slam, the U.S. Open, without anything. He won Australian Open. He's just going to continue to win. So as his career goes on, as the years go on, we're just going to be talking about Jannik Sinner winning Grand Slams. And there'll be no questions about it. He's good enough to win without any extra help. And I think that will just put all the noise and silencers to rest. But you're always going to have haters. You're always going to have people that don't like you. And of course, when you're number one in the world and you're winning all the time, you're going to always have naysayers. So I think as his career goes on, he's a great kid. He's very humble. And he's going down the right path. And he's, I'd rather this happen earlier in his career. And I think he's going to learn a lot from this. And I think this is just going to help him progress even farther down the road.
1000%. And one last thing that I wanted to touch on, we think of all the greatest athletes of all time. There's always going to be criticism. There's always going to be naysayers. You look at Tom Brady, for example, right? All the scandals that, maybe the Deflategate, this, that, and the other of hating on him, or perhaps even, John Jones and the instances that he's gotten into, LeBron James getting piped down by P. Diddy, right? Tiger Woods, with the DUI or the drunk accident, whatever, but at the end of the day, these are the greatest of all time. So, Sinner will come back bigger and stronger. And again, I wouldn't be surprised if he sweeps the Grand Slams this year. So with that said, I would like to do just a quick review over the three big tournament ATP 250s from last week. Obviously, the big talk. I mean, there's several big talks, right? You've got Hugo Humbert, who went back-to-back in France, right? He won the tournament last year. You've got Momir Kekmanovic. May have butchered that pronunciation, but I mean, the adversity that he faced to win that finals match was out of this world. And two match points. But I think the one that we really want to talk about is over at the Argentina Open with the prodigy Joao Fonseca. So would love to hear your thoughts, man. Obviously, this is so great for tennis. Obviously we've got Carlito and Sinner as those two top dogs, and that third spot is going to be filled. And I think Joao showed, and he has shown over the last X amount of time that this guy's legit. But for him to win his first official title as a professional ATP guy, it's just wonderful to see. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that adversity he faced, because right in, was it the semifinals or quarterfinals, he faced two matches.
Quarterfinals. Yep. Quarterfinals.
He came back, won that match. And yeah, man. So just so great for tennis to see a guy in him, and the character as well is just awesome to see. So yeah, love to hear your thoughts on that big win. Yeah.
So obviously Joao is a guy I've been talking about for a while. The tennis world is just getting to know him. They were introduced to him at the Australian Open. But Joao last year, U.S. Open boys finals, I followed him throughout the whole tournament when he played Lerner. And from then, I was just like, wow, this guy's got a lot of talent. When someone's that young, it's really hard to be like, okay, where will they go? But you can kind of see the potential, and this guy has a forehand like no other. We've seen guys over the years, like when Alcaraz was coming up, everyone was very high on him, and there was a lot of hype around him, rightfully so. But yeah, Joao just coming onto the scene, him winning the next gen in at the end of the last year, and then coming to this year, I watched all of his qualifying. We've talked about this into the Australian Open, and won his first round matchup against Rublev, and definitely made some waves. Obviously, it's his first. It's his first Grand Slam. He's young. He's going to have a lot of learning to do, a lot of growth to do. But his first ATP win. Wow, what a tournament for him! So being down 2 match points in the quarterfinals, then winning the semifinals, and yesterday, he faced a tough guy in Cerundolo. And speaking of Cerundolo, I just want to show you this real quick. Cerundolo has won 3 titles, and
Oh, there you go.
here's one of my Cerundolo cards. But
Go.
just talking about him, but yeah, Cerundolo's been playing very well. He's a guy that is gonna always be there on clay. He's a tough guy, and the odds favored Cerundolo slightly yesterday. Looking back, obviously, Joao, I mean, he's going to be a big favorite against a lot of people in the future. But just great to see him playing in Argentina, especially. South America tennis, they love their tennis. And Argentina, the crowd was pretty wild. I actually saw something Zverev said was how you can't even hear unless you're from Argentina. But Joao, he did it. And I know Brazil. Brazil loves tennis. They love their sports. And there hasn't been a guy like this in Brazil since Gustavo Kirchner in like the 90s. So this is very exciting times for Brazilian tennis. You obviously have, guys in the top 100, but we've been talking about for a while, who's going to be this third guy? We obviously used to have Nadal, Federer, Djokovic, the big 3, and now it's Djokovic, Sinner, and Alcaraz. And I still think that's the big 3, but in a few years from now, when Djokovic is gone, I think we have our big 3. I mean, there's so many good young up-and-coming guys and that have potential, but with Joao, I just feel it. He's got a strong forehand. He's a humble kid. He works hard, and the future is very bright for him. So I think there's going to be some learning curves. Yes, it's awesome that he got to win. He's winning these tournaments at a young age, but he's going to hit some adversity some point or later, and it's only going to make him stronger. So, I would say these next few years are very crucial for him. Could he win a Grand Slam? Sure. But I think he will definitely be a part of that big 3, and we're going to be hearing his name a lot for these next 10, 15 years. So excited to see what the future brings for him, and yeah, man, the sky's the limit for him.
Undoubtedly. And, this wasn't a cakewalk by any means, right? I mean, he had to take down 3 top 50 guys, all of which were Argentinians, right? In Argentina, in their backyard. And it's just like the aura for him. And like that blistering forehand, it blows my mind how much power he can generate at only 18 years old. And you got to only imagine, right? I mean, this is a guy at 18 physiologically, he's only going to get stronger. He's only going to get bigger and smarter, more wise. And that speed on that forehand is only going to get greater. So, the sky's the absolute limit for this guy. And, the fact that he's, has the second best odds to take down ATP Rio is just a testament to, the hype around this guy.
Yeah, it would be interesting. And, we talked about it on our last pod, and I was kind of saying, where do I see Joao's ranking at the end of the year? And being in the top 20, it wasn't so far out of the reach. But, I mean, after winning that tournament, if you take a look, I was looking at a graphic. At the start of 2024, he was ranked 730th in the world. He reached the Rio quarterfinals last year. He made it 343 in the world. And then he reached his first challenger final, which brought him to 288th in the world. And then last year, he won his first challenger title, which brought him to 166th. Then he won his second title, which brought him to he won the next gen, which brought him to 145. Then after he won the next gen, earlier this year, he won a challenger, which brought him to 113th in the world. Then after winning the Australian Open first round, it brought him to 99. And after winning the first ATP title yesterday, he's at 68 in the world. So seeing him in the top 20 at the end of the year is not far off. And before you know it, he's going to be in the top 10, and he's going to be in the top 5, and he's going to be a normal face in these semifinals of Grand Slam. So exciting to see, and the future of tennis is bright for him.
Absolutely, man. And just talking about just the odds of ATP Rio with him having the second best odds, I think this is a good time to just dive into ATP Rio, one of the 2 ATP 500s of the week. Defending champ is Sebastian Baez, which Looking at this bracket is very interesting to me because, to me, it seems very top heavy. You've got Fonseca at the top, you've got Cerundolo at the top, you've got Jari at the top, you've got Zverev at the top. But if you look down below, man, Lorenzo Musetti, Sebastian Baez, Jamie Munar I wouldn't even count out. He's a great guy from Spain. Not as star-studded as, say, ATP Doha, but I think that there's a lot of value for some of these guys that, isn't named Sasha Zverev. Just to go over the odds, Zverev at plus 175, Fonseca at plus 650, which, the fact that you've got a guy in Musetti who's, bronze medalist, near top 15 guy in the world, and this 18-year-old has better odds to take down the tournament while also being in that top half with Zverev is just astonishing to me. Of course, Cerundolo at plus 700, Musetti at plus 1,000, and Baez at plus 1,200. So I do think that there's a lot of value on a guy like Musetti at 10 to 1, or even Baez at 12 to 1, who is a defending champion on this court. But would love to hear your thoughts, man. I mean, we saw Zverev get taken down by Cerundolo last week. So I'm not super confident laying, plus 175 on this guy, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on this tournament overall and, who you're favored to win.
For sure. Well, Zverev, anytime he's in any tournament, he's always a threat to win. There's not one tournament, even the Grand Slams, where I'm like, okay, Zverev can't win. Zverev is one of the best in the world. He was in the French Open final last year on clay, up 2-0. His game translates to hard court. He can play on all surfaces. When it comes to, last week he had a tough loss against Cerundolo. At plus 175, I think that's a little like Zverev. He's got a great shot of winning this tournament, and I would consider him the favorite for sure. But, you have a guy like Joao Fonseca at plus 650, and he just coming off a tournament win last week. You feel like that's good odds, and would love to see you, Joao, carry this momentum over. But if we talk about, I'm going to talk about women's tennis for a second. Special congratulations to Amanda Aminasova for winning the Masters 1000s last week. And, obviously you had Sabalenka losing, Coco Gauff losing. Amanda Aminasova has been a player for a while. She just kind of had injuries. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because she played Ostapenko in the final. And there's many times where you'll see a men's champion or women's champion. They win a championship on Sunday, and then they lose their first-round matchup in the next tournament. And that's actually happened to Amanda Aminasova and Ostapenko. They were in the finals on Sunday, and they lost their first-round matchups. Back to Joao. And my point is that he could either carry this momentum and prolong it to another title, which would be crazy, or maybe, I don't think he's tired at all. He's 18, he's young. Or maybe he could potentially have a first-round loss. I don't think that he will, but it's always good to, not get on your high horse. And like I said, these players are the best in the world. And Joao is only 18. So he's going to have times where he loses to players that aren't as good as him. There's going to be some learning curves. So I do like his value there, but it will be a tough tournament for him to win. I would love to see a Fonseca-Zverev matchup. As far as a guy like Cerundolo, I mean, as we saw last week, he had a great run. Sebastian Baez obviously won this in the past. He's a clay quarter. So it's a pretty open draw. If a guy like Zverev loses, then it seems more open. But, there's some good matchups, and interesting to see how it will play out. So,
yeah, man, something I'm keeping my eye on. There's a very likely possibility we actually see a rematch between Cerundolo and Fonseca in the quarterfinals. Surely Fonseca is going to have to get through Alexander Muller and then Echeverry, another Argentinian. But who knows? I mean, Cerundolo has a very favorable matchup there versus Hugo Gaston in the first round, and then the winner of Darderi, who will likely win that match, versus Hugo Delane, who I'm not super familiar with. So that would be super cool to see. But, I'm just looking at this bottom half, man, and, Musetti did drop out of his latest match with a calf injury. I'm not sure how severe it is. But just looking at the table here, man, at 10 to 1, it's got a fairly easy path, as well as Baez. I mean, these are two guys over 10 to 1 odds in the bottom half that could very easily win that bottom half there, and then you see them in the finals
Yep.
versus
And I'm
maybe.
looking at his draw. He's got a chance to play his brother again, who just qualified yesterday. He's got Jari in the first round. Jari's a guy, that's your boy Jari. Jari could always make a run too. I wouldn't be shocked to see Jari do something. Um,
Yeah.
But another thing to mention is that Fonseca is playing in Brazil. This is in Rio, so home court advantage in sports can definitely help. But in something like in a tennis match like this, a big match where you're gonna have the fans all rowdy, it's gonna be more of like a Davis Cup vibe feel when he's playing. I think the crowd will make an impact, and this being in Joe's home country, you haven't had a star like this in Brazil in so many years. So the fact that you have him now, there's going to be so many people out there. They're going to be so rowdy for him. They take a lot of pride in him. So yeah, it's gonna be tough for somebody to go in and beat him on his home turf, but it will be a good one. I'm very interested to see how this is going to play out.
Yeah, you talk about the crowd and the environment, and there's really nothing like a South American crowd, right? I mean, you've got these guys in the back just like blowing their horns, like in between points and everything. Like you just don't see that. Like, I've been watching ATP Doha, pretty much all morning, and like it's like night and day, like the environment. The environment there. I mean, I get it's the first round and everything, but South American tennis is just something out of this world.
It's the love they have for their country, and I was. Back to that point, I was in Roland Garros this year for the Olympics, and I'm not the biggest doubles fan, but when it's the Olympics and it's on the line, that Brazilian crowd was so rowdy for the doubles, and you just love to see that type of excitement and that atmosphere in tennis. And yeah, like I said, I think Joao is only gonna be a bright star and a big shining light for Brazil. So you love to see it, and hopefully it's a great tournament.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm just so eager, man. Like, obviously, with Fonseca winning his first title, you just wonder, like, is there going to be that energy dump, that adrenaline dump that he just had? Are his legs going to be fresh enough to push through? And I could definitely see him, getting through the first, maybe second round. But like I said, if we can get that rematch versus Cerundolo, I think that would be really cool to see. But would love to hear. So obviously, just looking at the odds here, who do you like in this tournament? Like, what number do you have circled at this point?
It's always hard to predict a winner in these tournaments.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you had to say, looking at the odds, like it's so hard to pick against Zverev because Zverev's one of the best in the world. He's been in a few Grand Slam finals, and he plays very well in clay. He's won the Olympics. So, if I had to say, if I had to put money on it, Zverev's definitely a safe choice. But something in there is telling me, Joao is, like I said, I'm not thinking for sure he can win this, but it's in his home country. He just coming off his first tournament win. He could either go up here or he could have a first round loss, which would be, and everyone would be shocked. But would love to see Joao win it. And honestly, if I had to say, I'm going Joao. If Joao and Zverev play, I'm going Joao because it's going to be a very interesting matchup. And while Zverev is probably a better player right now, home court advantage. So I'd love to see him win it in his own country, get a second title. And what are you thinking?
Man, that's so bold, man. And like just the thought of Fonseca getting to that match versus Zverev, right? I mean, he's going to have to get through Cerundolo. He's going to have to get through Etcheverry, which is no easy match, man. But I definitely respect that. I think Zverev is definitely likely to take it home. But for me, I got to go with my gut here. I'm going with Musetti. I think like with the whole beef with Sinner and all this drama, I feel like there's like maybe a fire under Italian tennis right now. And Musetti looked fantastic last week. He had like a weird medical withdrawal, so I'm not 100% certain that he's fully healthy. But yeah, no, I mean, we talked about it, in previous pods. This guy Musetti that has experience deep in big tournaments, bronze medalists, etc. But I think just that bottom half is so favorable for him. I'm not going to sit here and say it's a cakewalk because you and I both know at this level there really is no cakewalk. But I like Musetti at 10-1. I think that's really good odds. If he can make it to the finals, Even versus Zverev, I would probably mark Zverev like maybe minus 200 in that matchup, maybe minus 225. So like, at plus 1,000, I think if you take that pre-tournament, there could even be an opportunity for a hedge later on. So yeah, I like Musetti here. I think that he'll get past the defending champion and Sebastian Baez in the semis, and perhaps Zverev in the finals. So
For sure. And somebody else to keep an eye on for is Navone. He actually, that's who Fonseca had 2 match points, and he lost to him 7-5 in the final set. So he's a guy that's very good on clay, and he could also make some waves. Another guy that I like, cool name too, Pedro Martinez.
Pedro Martinez.
He's a guy. He's won a few challengers. He's been here for a while, and he's good on clay. So some of these guys, if it was on hard court, you look at it a different way. But this is a clay court tournament, and yeah, man, you have to. I wouldn't be surprised if we see someone from the bottom half win. It's a very wide open field in the bottom half. So
agreed. And correct me if I'm wrong, but Pedro Martinez, he just made those semis, right? In Argentina, was it the semis that he made it to? So
yeah.
Because he lost to Cerundolo in the semis, if I'm not mistaken. Or no. I'd have to fact check that. But
he lost to Cerundolo. Yeah, he lost to Cerundolo in the semis. Yep.
Cool.
Yep.
Yeah. So like you said, man, wide open tournament. Part of me feels like anyone outside of Zverev was going to take it. Just watching Zverev last week, just didn't seem like he was himself. I mean, I don't know. I just think that his game it can be exposed by some of these guys on clay, and with that crowd. I mean, he talked about that crowd, perhaps even causing problems for him. So we'll see what happens, man. But if that's all that you had on this ATP 500, I'd love to dive into a much more star-studded field in ATP Doha 500, which is formerly an ATP 250 from 1993 to 2024. So this was upgraded to an ATP 500 in 2025, which is super exciting. Surely we're going to have, the big 3 in this tournament, but with Sinner dropping out, it's still a loaded field, right? Obviously, we've got Carlito, who won in straight sets versus Silic this morning. Obviously, you got the Joker in it, Medvedev, Damon Noor. So a lot of great talent here. Obviously, Karen Khachanov is a defending champion in this tournament back last year. Medvedev won in 2023. Rublev won it in 2020. And then Shirley Djokovic won it back-to-back in 2016 and 2017. But would love to hear your thoughts here. I think this is definitely a wide-open tournament for sure. Obviously with Carlos at plus 160 on paper, he's the favorite to take it. But I'm not so certain that he's just going to run through to the finals and win this tournament. So love to hear your thoughts here on this ATP 500.
Yeah, well, we'll start off with Carlos. Congratulations to Carlos on winning another championship the other week in Rotterdam. And we watched that first round matchup against Botic Van der Sloot, and that was a matchup he could have lost. But even though Carlito is one of the top players in the world and we expect him to win, it's not easy to win against these top guys. And he prevailed, and it got stronger as the tournament went on, and beat de Minaur in the finals. Carlos Alcaraz definitely was a guy a few years, like last year, where I was like, okay, he's dominant. I looked at him and I looked at a Sinner as a Djokovic. I think that he's kind of taking a step back in the sense of he, it's not like he's so dominant, right? He is a very good player, but he's not like a Sinner dominant guy. Do I think he can get back to that level? Absolutely. But right now, I think it's just very, he's got some growing room to do. If this is on clay, if this is on grass, definitely I give him the edge. But hard court, there's a lot of good players in this tournament. Like you said, Djokovic is in this tournament in his draw. And we know what happened last time they played. So best of 3 sets, I think Djokovic could definitely take him. Would love to see a guy like Djokovic win this. I don't think this is something that Djokovic is like, oh, please let me win this, like a Grand Slam. But, if he can win it, why not? And if you look at the more of this bracket, like you got de Minaur at the bottom of it. He could make it to the finals. You got Rublev. And I know Medvedev has been slacking a bit, and you kind of talked about that. But I would like to see him find his game again. All it takes is a few good matches, one good tournament, and get that confidence back. So that's a good first-round matchup between Khachanov and Medvedev. Um, Also, I'm looking forward to Meta Djokovic versus Tsitsipas. Tsitsipas is a guy that has kind of fallen off. It would be cool to see Tsitsipas just randomly win a tournament like this, or like a Masters 1000 to try to see where he could go. But a guy like Tsitsipas definitely needs to start, going on runs. But yeah, this is a star-studded field. Obviously, also we had a good matchup earlier today. Paparoan versus Draper. Draper is very good. Um, I give, Draper can win this tournament too. If it's a Grand Slam best of 5 sets, Draper doesn't have the best condition, and that's why I love these Grand Slams, because the best of the best only win these Grand Slams because it's best of 5 sets. But yeah, this is a very star-studded field. Like I said, I would love to see Djokovic win this. I don't know who will ultimately prevail, but it's a tough tournament. So may the best man win.
Absolutely. And you kind of already hit on this, but in a tournament where it's best of three, anyone can win, and I think with Carlos's game, it can be way more exposed, right? In a best of three. You talk about fitness, Carlos has the best of the best. So if you're going to win those first 2 sets, trying to win that third set is going to be a challenge. And a tournament like this, I could totally see, Carlos getting upset by a guy in Lehechka. We saw Lehechka dominate Dimitrov this morning. Looked so good, man. I mean, kept the unforced errors down, didn't make a lot of mistakes, didn't even let up a break point. He actually had to face 2 break points. It was in the third game. It was in the second game of the entire match. He was down love 30, saved him, got the point and didn't have to face a break point the rest of the match. And that kind of brings me to the point that, Dimitrov definitely on the downswing, top 13 in the world, and just didn't look like himself, was very slow, didn't have that speed, didn't have that stamina. So yeah, but no, this is a really, really fun tournament, just given all the talent here. I love my guy, Alex de Minaur, and he's got a pretty favorable reach to the finals. I mean, he is probably going to have to face Rublev in the quarterfinals there, and then perhaps Tsitsipas or Medvedev in the semis, which, I mean, we already touched on this. I just don't see the quality in Medvedev right now. And we just saw him last week, and just the way he went out in that tournament, 6-2, 6-2 to a very low quality guy, just very uninspired. But like you said, man, if he can just win, a few matches here and there, pick up that mojo, you can never count out Medvedev. But like you said, man, I think Draper, at the odds of plus 1,600, I don't think that's terrible odds. Now, mind you, he is going to have to go through Djokovic in the quarters and then Carlos in the semis. So by no means is that going to be easy. But if you have a guy like in Lehechka who upsets Carlos, right? You've got Draper that beats Djokovic. We could see one of these guys outside of the top 15, top 20 reach it to the finals and perhaps win this tournament. So just to kind of go through the odds here, you've got Carlos at plus 160, Djokovic at plus 350, Medvedev at 7-1, de Minaur at 8-1, and then Draper at 16-1. So, I mean, with that said, would you even consider a play on Djokovic at plus 250?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly think that anybody in this tournament could win it. Obviously, what a what a stacked field. But Djokovic, if this is years ago, the dominant Djokovic, he's winning every tournament. Carlos, you know, is obviously playing his game right now. But if he has to face Djokovic, so that's tricky. It would be hard to really say, hey, I think Djokovic is going to win this because he's got to get through Carlos. And this is a stacked field. But yeah, man, I mean, you can't go wrong going with a long shot here. But, if I had to say, probably going to be Carlos or Djokovic, one of those two. If they have to play each other and one of them beats each other, it's going to carry the momentum. Mm-hmm. But if we're looking at the bottom half, somebody that can get to the finals, don't forget a guy named, FAA is there.
True.
Rublev could make it. So anybody on the bottom half, I feel like could be good value because that's wide open. The top half you have Alcaraz, you got Djokovic, you got your boy Lehechka. Mm-hmm. So that's a little bit of tougher side. But yeah, you could look at a guy like de Minaur, a guy like Rublev, a guy like FAA. and would love to see a guy like Medvedev make the finals, but we'll see. We'll see if he can get something going. Then tennis is a game of momentums. It's you win a tournament, you win a few matches. That's all you need in some of these cases. So, um, with that being said, yeah, I think it's going to be either Djokovic or my boy Carlos Alcaraz.
Let's fucking go. That's
We should
dope.
just,
That's dope. That's dope.
yeah,
The sleep goes hard, man. Watching ATP Doha this morning, man. Doha is a beautiful city. Like, I don't know if you got
beautiful.
caught their skyline, but it looks magnificent. But yeah, man, it's gonna be a fun tournament. I'm really excited who's gonna reign supreme here. Obviously we got a few ATP 1000s looming, but these tournaments absolutely matter. And you know, part of me just would love to see someone else like kind of break through here. Maybe a guy in Deminor, maybe even a guy like Rublev who won here in 2020. So can never count him out. And like you said, Tsitsipas, guy that he can just get that mojo going, man. I mean, he's got all the potential in the world. It's just that mental hurdle that he has to overcome, man. It just seems like he gets so defeated, and then his game just goes downhill from there. So, um, you know, it's tough, man. I mean, we just know how much potential he has, and I would love to see him get back into form because, I mean, you can tell in some of these tournaments that it definitely affects him. Because I mean, this is a guy who's number 2 in the world at one point, and was talked about to be, one of the best, and just that fall off is something to consider. But is there anything else that you wanted to touch on here with ATP Doha?
No, but just like nothing else. But just like you said with Medvedev, it would be cool to see him find his place again because there once was a time in like 2020 where Medvedev was on his own level. He was dominant. He was what Sinner is now. He was what Djokovic used to be. It was short lived, but I know he's got the potential, and would love to see him get back into form.
Absolutely. And with that said, who do you like? Who do you like? I mean, this is one of those moments where we love to like look back and see maybe if we hit the nail on the head here. But what's the play?
Well, since Sinner's not it, if Sinner's in this, I'm picking Sinner.
Sinner all
But
day.
that would be easier. But it's hard to say. But if I had to pick, I would say Djokovic. Just because, Djokovic, he was on a pretty good run at the quarterfinals of the Australian Open. He got hurt. He's had some time to recover. And look, it's best of 3. Obviously, we know we can do a best of 5, but it's best of 3. And yeah, he's beat Carlos. Would love to see him beat Carlos again. And honestly, if he had to play any of those other guys in the finals, sure, it would be a good match if they have a shot. But it doesn't scare me when Djokovic is playing a guy like Deminor or a guy like Rublev because he's got such a good return. I think his toughest matchup will be Carlos Alcaraz. But let's not overlook his first round matchup in a guy like Matteo Berrettini. Mm-hmm. We got a past Wimbledon matchup finals. So gonna be a good one. What would you say?
Man, I got to go with my heart here. I think you might know what I'm about to say, but we just saw this guy as a finalist at Rotterdam, and there's just something about his physique as well, man. It seems like he's definitely put on some weight. If he can just keep that serve consistent, I mean, his return game is on paper the best in the world right now. At this point in time, statistically, best returner in the world. But if he can just get that first serve in, I really think that he has the potential to take out a guy in Sinner, man. I really do. And you look at Carlos's path, you look at Djokovic's path. I mean, they're not easy by any means, right? I mean, Carlos is more than likely going to face Yuri Lehechka in the quarterfinals, which the way Yuri is playing right now is very, very dominant. And then, you got a guy in Djokovic, like you said, got to play Berrettini first round, perhaps even Griekspoor in the second round, and then maybe Draper in that quarterfinals there. So I just feel like, when it comes to who's going to win this tournament, a lot of it depends on matchups and where you're placed in this bracket. And, I just see a guy in Deminor who's just so rock solid and consistent that, he's very much so take over Rublev, absolutely beat Medvedev, very winnable matchup there. So, yeah, I like Deminor plus 800. I think that's really good value. You know, if he gets slated in a finals versus Djokovic or Carlito, you got to imagine he's probably in that plus 150 range, plus 175. So I think there's definitely value there. But yeah, I'm going with some long shots this week. My heart and gut is telling me someone outside of Djokovic or Carlito is going to win in Doha this week. I don't know who exactly is going to be. I'd love to see Damon Miller take this one, but yeah, I don't know if that's a bold take or not. But yeah,
Well,
yeah.
a guy, I know that you're big on Dimanoir, and, a guy like Dimanoir is one of the best of the best right now.
Yeah.
I have, the way I do it is there's tiers of tennis, there's levels to this. And for a while, I had like Zverev in the second tier. I had Djokovic, Sinner, and Alcaraz in their first tier. It's kind of changed. I have Sinner in his own tier of his own right now. And then I have, Alcaraz and Djokovic in one. I do think that Dimanoir can beat anybody in the world. When he plays anybody outside the top 10, he's very consistent. He wins a lot, and his game translates on all surfaces. There's only one person which I think, he can't. You brought this up, Yannick Sinner. Yannick Sinner owns this man. Yannick Sinner is 10-0 against him.
It's crazy.
And like I said, Dimanoir, yeah, I think he can. Against anybody in the world, he's got a great shot he can beat. Yeah. But when it comes to Sinner, I just look at him in a whole different light. But yeah, Dimanoir has got a great shot. Rublev, Dimanoir, Alcaraz, Djokovic are definitely the names to look out for in this. But we could always see a guy like Tsitsipas or Medvedev. We would love to see that. So
honestly,
it will be a good tournament. And yeah, we'll see what happens in that, how that plays out. Did you have anything else to add to that?
No, I don't, man. I mean, I think we covered everything here. Next week, was it next week it starts? February 24th. So yeah, so next week we've got 2 more ATP 500s. We've got a ATP tournament in Mexico. So another South American tournament there. It should be electric. And then certainly the ATP 500 in Dubai. And then that following week and a half, we'll see our first ATP 1000. So
yep.
Yeah, man.
And speaking of 1000s tournaments, I just wanted to talk about the women's Masters 1000 real quick. It's kind of interesting how they have it. They had the first women's Master 1000s last week, and then they have the second one this week. So the men's first one won't even be till Indian Wells. So they share a lot of the same Masters, but there's a few that are different. And obviously, like we said, diving into when it comes to the women, and it's not like men's Grand Slams. A lot of the times, it could be anybody. As we saw, Amanda Minasova won that last week, which she was a bright young star, but some injuries happened, and So I'm just looking at this field right now.
Right? She took some time off, like a year or so.
I'm just looking at this field right now, and the best thing about these Masters 1000s are if you're a top seed, you get a first-round bye. So that's huge. Definitely helps. You have Sabalenka. I mean, this is a star-studded field. Sabalenka, Coco Gauff, Jess Pegula. And I know I said this earlier, but speaking of Amanda Minasova, she lost to McCartney Kessler, another American. She's going to play Coco Gauff the next round. Emma Raducanu, she got a win finally. She's been on a long losing streak. Emma Navarro's in this. Somebody to look out for is Belinda Bencic. Belinda Bencic is a girl that she has won the Olympics. She was a former top player. She had a baby last year, so she's a mom. And then coming onto tour this year, she just won a championship, and she's just been on a phenomenal run. Would be cool to see her make some noise. Obviously, you got Rybakina in this tournament. Ostapenko, who was just in the finals, she just lost in the first round. So it's a pretty star-studded field. And then obviously on the bottom, you got Iga Swiatek. She's going to be taking on Victoria Azarenka next round, which would be pretty interesting. But yeah, I mean, this is wide open. I don't think it's going to go like it did last week. I think we're going to see, Sabalenka or Swiatek or one of these top players in the finals. I would love to see how Sabalenka bounces back from this, because going into that, up until that Australian Open finals, she was dominant. And then, you lose and you kind of lose your confidence, but definitely would like to see what she does, and also always keep an eye out for Iga Swiatek. Iga Swiatek she plays hard, and Yeah, so if I interested in this tournament, obviously another Master 1000, and would also like to see someone like Coco Gauff, get back on her feet. She's been struggling, but like I said, it's wide open for the women. But it's cool to have back-to-back Masters 1000s in a row. And yeah, man, did you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I did. Mira Andreeva. Can't forget, the Joao Fonseca of women's tennis, the 17-year-old prodigy. She dominated this morning, 6-2, 6-2. I watched that second set there, and she looked phenomenal. So, yeah, man, definitely lot of tennis this week. Super excited. But, man, always a pleasure breaking these tournaments down with you, my guy. And certainly, knock on wood, we'll be back next week to break down 2 more ATP 500s.
Let's do it. Enjoy these tournaments, and we'll be back.
All right. Well, that's Charm City Tennis Talk. Appreciate you guys for watching, and we'll catch you on the flip side.